Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My guests for today are the Apostate sisters, Patti and Nancy. Welcome, ladies.
Hi,
Thanks for having us, Granny.
yes.
It's been almost a year since we were here.
Oh, really? Has it been that long?
I think it was February 17th last year. And I
Uh-huh.
remember it very clearly because that was the first time we showed our faces on YouTube.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's on your
Mhm.
channel, Granny. And I think
Yeah, I
what?
have been so honored with people doing face reveals. Professor Prince
Yay!
did a face reveal on my show.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so go figure.
last week, now it wasn't a reveal in the completely because he has been live before, but he isn't usually live. But dark, now I can't remember. It's not dark of all ages, it's uh dark of all trades. Dark of
Dark
all
Wolf.
trades was
Yep.
on last week, and he did a face reveal because he normally is on as a avatar. And
Oh,
one
yeah.
thing that was amazing is his artist who did his avatar drew it from life. And so when he came on live, he looks just like his avatar.
That's hilarious.
Mhm.
I love that. Like you're the space where people reveal their face, Granny. Maybe you should
I guess so. I guess
Mhm.
so.
they feel comfortable enough with you, Granny. And I think, we were so excited when you first invited us to come on your channel here almost a year ago when we have 17 subscribers. And now we have, over 780. And we have you to thank for a lot of that. And we've had you on our channel for an interview as well. So thank you. I mean, obviously, you're a very comfortable, safe space to be around.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Today, our topic is this book, Disobedient Women.
Okay.
And this is a book that I picked up at the American Atheist Conference. And the author, Sarah Stancorb, was there and she was signing it. And she signed my book. And I would love to have had Sarah on to talk about her book. But unfortunately, Sarah has serious voice issues.
Okay.
Talking is not Sarah's thing. And so Sarah does what she can to use her voice. As Patti and I were talking about this before the show, that she has found a way to stand up and use her voice, even though she has almost no voice whatsoever. But
Yes.
she is a great writer. She has written for the New York Times. Um, and she wrote this book, and it's really quite the book. It was not what I expected from the title, although if I had read the subtitle, I would have known exactly what it was, which I did not before I read the book. But this is a book about how a group of bloggers started writing the stories of people who were in cult-like churches.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories that were coming started to sound very familiar. And when they first started posting some of these blogs, the women that were coming forward with these stories did not give their real names and they did not name the actual church that they came from. But a lot of people could, from the details in the stories, figure out who it was or what church it was. And things escalated very quickly. But as a result of some of the stories, more and more people came forward. And this group of bloggers got together and made a bigger blog. And as a result of all of this, a lot of the pastors got taken down. There were just too many stories of too much sexual abuse in their churches. And the stories were so similar that they realized that, hey, this has happened a number of times. And other women were looking at the stories and saying, the same thing happened to me, but I thought I was the only one. And so more and more of them came forward. And when there were too many, the church could no longer ignore them. Things started happening, and a number of pastors were discredited and were charged. Some of them were charged with sexual abuse. Some of them were sued for sexual abuse. And the efforts of these bloggers really was what broke the tide, what was able to bring a stop to it. Oh, and I neglected to do something important, and that is give a trigger warning and a warning that this show is not for children. This show, we're going to be talking about sexual abuse and sexual topics. So if that's a trigger for you, you might want to skip this one.
Cool.
So with that, I wanted to talk about this with Nancy and Patti because I could not get Sarah on, because they came out of a church that was very similar to the churches that are talked about in this book. And even though you did not suffer the same experience, you have heard from people who have. Talk to me a little bit about your own experiences in your church and hearing from the guests. How did that make you feel about your church and your own experience? And
Yeah. Well, I guess who comes first to mind is we interviewed a wonderful woman named Donna. Her story is heartbreaking. I mean, obviously, we don't want to get into too much detail, but let's just say she endured some of the worst, went through 2 husbands. She was brought up from an early age, indoctrinated to think that, she was a lower class citizen. So, of course, when fear and love look like the same thing, which the cults and many other religions of high control teach, it leaves you vulnerable to abusive relationships in the future. And that's exactly what happened to her. Not once, but twice. She went through 2 husbands that were abusive. And long story short, when it came down to her actually speaking up and saying something about it, which took her a while because she felt like she didn't have a voice, it was basically the cult were in the favor of these men, her second husband, and they took him out for a beer while they told her to basically shut the fuck up. Like, you keep your trap closed. You're the woman that stays home. And yeah, it's a tale as old as time, so to speak, where churches are covering for the abuses of within their own organization, or they're turning a blind eye, or somehow they use the Bible to justify these actions. It's absolutely disgusting. I would say, I can't speak for Patti. I don't think anything happened to you, Pats, but I know we were, for the most part, safe in our cult from that. But I can certainly talk about my military experience after serving 10 years in the Army on what that was like, which is essentially very similar to a cult. But I'll let Patti take it from there if she has anything to add. I know there's more stories out there.
Yeah, I mean, how it made me feel, I guess, about the cult is like sort of the recognition that we were really lucky in the way that, like, despite all the things we would say were problematic about our childhood and the things we were taught, and the world is going to end, that kind of thing, it's like we still were seen by our parents, and they still played with us and were nice to us. I mean, yes, they spanked us, but it's like, as far as the horrors and the evils that we have heard about, we got definitely the lower end of that, I think. When it comes to like the relationships between men and women, I think, having grown up in San Jose, California, while also in the church, I think I didn't see the depth of the patriarchy and misogyny at play in the church, right? Because it was also a really progressive location in the country in the 80s where women were being empowered, like shoulder pads were in, so like like there was a different vibe of how men and women treated each other or acted toward each other in California at the time that I think moderated what might have come to us otherwise through the church. So I think the recognition since then has been like having to fully grapple with what the church was in terms of the messages that I took in about men and women. and about like women's roles and stuff, you know, because it was like a dual message of being empowered and also the church messaging. So I feel like I took more general harm from that, but none of those like really difficult experiences. I think probably the church in many locations would still have condemned actual violence, um, at least from the ways I observed it. So it seems to me that it's regional, but I think the church was very good at coercion. So they didn't have to be violent if they could coerce what they wanted. And that word comes to mind because we recently interviewed a woman named Lisa from our church, and her interview is going to come out in the next week or so here. But she spoke of, with her husband from the WCG, that she was expected to perform sexually every 36 hours. I, I'm
Yeah.
still grappling with that one because it wasn't that long ago that we heard that. But, you know, if that's set up and you're taught that early enough, you go along with it and you think that's your job, right? And you don't even think, oh, I'm being pushed down. My potential is being squandered. Like, you don't have room for thinking those things.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's like more the messages that I took from it, I would say. And just having to deal with the realization of what that all really was like. You know, as much as we like to make fun of the church and have a laugh at it, there is a moment of things that we can't laugh at.
One of the things that is talked about in Sarah's book is that a lot of times the way that this would start would be that the leader, and she talks about Norman Geisler a lot because Norman Geisler was one of the ones that kind of started this method, was choosing a young woman to be his intern and asking her to work for him as his intern. And they're being just mildly inappropriate things, and then asking her to go travel with him, you know, as his intern and go to camp with him. And that's when things would get really bad. Did you ever see your church leaders choosing a young woman for an intern or something like that, where you never knew anything was going on?
I mean, the leader of our cult, which, just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, is Worldwide Church of God under Herbert W. Armstrong. He's been dead since '86, but he was the leader, and all kinds of rumors and things came out in exposés after the fact, power struggles. There were rumors of, you know, pornography of young men. He always had beautiful women around him, especially on one of his private jets that he flew all over the world. And he even had a young woman named Ramona Martin who worked for him, over half his age, or younger than half his age. And yeah, he ended up marrying her. And I don't know, a lot of stories of coercion came out of that he loved the beautiful ladies. He had more money than he knew what to do with. You know, when you're tithing people up to 30%, yeah, that's what happens. Tax-free donated dollars that is required of its members.
30%?
Up to 30%. Yeah, this is something
Was it a sliding scale based on how much money you made?
It was a system of 3 tithes plus special offerings.
Yeah. And so, yeah, money can breed corruption, and corruption loves power. And I don't know if he started out being that person, but he became that person. And there was a lot of vulnerable people along the way. I'll just say that a lot got swept under the table. So we can really only speculate and go off of things that we have heard and people have told us personally about his character. But we are assuming that a lot of his members were no better. And obviously those stories are coming out. Patty and I were fortunate enough to escape that as children. But again, we were definitely left vulnerable later on in life due to that manipulation and coercion. So
Ember says, wait, Geisler as in Frank Turek's mentor? I did not realize that Geisler was Frank Turek's mentor, although I do know that Geisler has had profound effect throughout the Protestant community, especially the fundamentalist community, because he started a university, and so he trained up a lot of the current apologists. And yeah, his influence on these apologists was widespread. I've also been holding another question because it was a little bit off, but Nancy, you alluded to an Army story, and Clement Green wants to hear your Army story.
Sure, I can make it real short here, but hi, Clement. I spent 10 years in the Army, and oh God, how old was I when I joined? I believe I was 23 when I joined, so it hasn't been that long since I've been out. In that time, I've filed at least 3 or 4 sexual harassment charges, 1 assault, and there definitely could have been more. But yeah, some of these men that you think are the honorable higher ups, and quote the Bible and stand in front of formation with a beautiful wife and child next to them, and all holier than fucking thou, and then behind closed doors, that same dude is asking what kind of panties you're wearing, and trying to get with all the young females. It's quite disgusting. That actually happened quite a lot. And I remember more things as I talk about them. In fact, I do have a novel out there that I do touch on it a little bit. And some people have told me, why are you painting the U.S. Army in such a negative light and these men as being like these gross pervs? I'm like, I'm actually writing it based on the experience that I personally had. And so there's more that can come up, but a lot gets swept under the rug. We'll just say that. I spent a year in Iraq, 08 to 09. You wouldn't believe all the kinds of shady shit that happens. So, but long story short, I mean, I'm not saying everything is bad. Maybe it can be improved on a systematic level. But yeah, it happens to men too. I just want to clarify. It's not just the women.
That's what I was wondering too. I could see someone using that as an argument for why women don't belong in combat. But I think if women were not in combat, nothing would change.
Kelly, the day that we got in theater over in Iraq, there was a flyer on the wall from a man, a U.S. soldier, who said, "I want to know who essayed me." He was being assaulted, and he was trying to figure out who it was. These things happen. Yeah. And I do want to draw attention to the men out there that the same thing happens to. Yeah.
Love you, Nancy.
I don't know. I just I don't know how you fix something like that.
It's broken from the beginning. It's
sounds like we blog. That's what it sounds like. But the thing that I appreciate about you bringing up that book, Granny, is that it shows us that our voice does fucking matter.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think something like that being out there and seeing the rest of the story that did take down those pastors, that should make everyone else feel like now is the time. Like, say what you gotta say, because if you say it, it's going to inspire someone else to feel safe enough to say it.
And that kind of takes us back a little bit to what we were talking about a minute ago, and Ember brought up Geisler was the co-author of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, which is Frank's main claim to fame. And I didn't even look at that. I've always associated that book. In fact, I believe that since this came out, that they took Geisler's name off of the book. I'm going to let one of you start talking so that I can go check Amazon for it, because I believe that is something that happened. I know they took. I know. It was Ravi Zacharias had an endorsement of the book or a forward to the book. And when he was taken down, they removed that from the book. But I don't know that what came out with Geisler was sufficiently strong enough to get him off of the book. I'm not sure, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look that up. Well, we go on to our next point. Patty, you look like you have something to say.
I
No?
don't, but if you give me a question, I will.
Okay. So
Ah,
how often does this happen that you come up with that you have a guest on that brings up things that happened in your own church that you never realized was going on?
oh,
Hmm.
all of them. I'd say every person. Okay, so we have 2 interview series, Kelly. We have one that is dedicated specifically for survivors of the Worldwide Church of God, the cult we were raised in, and the offshoots, which there who knows how many offshoot churches there are now, the splinter churches. But we dedicate that just for those people. And then we have another interview series, which is like maybe other content creators and professionals in this space. I'd say, how many people have we interviewed so far, Pats, from WCG?
I
At
think we
least
have 8
10?
or so out there.
Okay, and more to
Oh yeah,
follow.
10. Yeah, 10 with the ones coming out soon.
I'd say every
Mm.
single one of them has said something new that I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the different perspectives, especially the women. Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
they have
gonna
a lot.
say, I feel like most of the women had something to say about how they recognize now that they were treated or how women were treated in general by the church.
Right. I would say a lot of the girls that came out of Worldwide Church of God didn't particularly make the best decisions when it came to choosing partners in life for obvious reasons, what we've been talking about. And I don't think there's any way we can pinpoint how far it goes until we start talking about it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I looked up on Ember's Point, and then I want to come back to what you said in just a second, which is on Ember's Point. Norman Geisler's name is still on the book, but that is going to be a talking point for me the next time I talk about Frank Turek. I had not put that together, and I will definitely put that together the next time I do something on Frank Turek. Now, getting back to what Nancy was saying, I have seen that as a kaja as well. Even when it has nothing to do with religion, women who make bad choices as to partners tend to choose the same types of partners again and again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works the other way around too. Not that a woman is choosing it, but once a woman has been assaulted, there's just something, I don't know how it is, but there's something about her that gives off a vibe of vulnerability, and men tend to pick up on it. And when I say that because I've seen a number of women who as girls were assaulted, through no fault, no choice of their own, but then as adults continue to be assaulted. And I don't understand that it's not like they're choosing this, and yet it continues to happen to them.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
in some ways it seems like if you're never given yourself, if you're never taught that you own you, right? Autonomy. If you're not taught that you own you, you're not grounded, you're not rooted to anything. You don't exist in your own body, and maybe that's the energy, sorry, it sounds woo, that they're picking up, right? Like my body's not safe to be in, so I'm just not going to be in it.
right.
And I think that does leave something open. And there's just no recognition of it's actually not okay for those things to be happening to me. Hey, I should expect to be treated with respect. I should expect to be asked these things if I want or not, And if that doesn't happen, what are you holding on to? Anyone gives you attention, and and you're craving it so much, you're going to glom onto it. You know, and the vulnerability that results from that, how open they are to being manipulated, is really difficult to grapple with.
Instead of
And to realize,
indoctrinating our children at a young age, we should be teaching them at a young age how power and control and manipulation works, and
yeah,
things to watch for, and what adults to trust and talk to when they're made vulnerable. But that's the problem too, is some of these kids go to adults, and these are the same fucking adults that use those control tactics over them. And so who do you turn to when a child hasn't had, you know, an adult that they could trust and be vulnerable with? They turn into vulnerable adults, and they join cults.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing, that, you know, we need some kind of training for children to know what is good and what is okay and what is not okay. And we've managed to get some training into the schools of what is okay and what is not okay touch for young children. But I think we need to get something in for high school, and not just girls. I think boys need it just
Oh, yeah.
as much as girls
for
do.
sure. Yeah.
Agreed.
Of learning what is and what is not okay. Maybe sociology class.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if school is soon enough. I mean, this stuff is like as soon as they're reaching down into their diaper area, you know, like we need as parents to be reinforcing that that is theirs. And if we're moving their hand, like, here's a reason why, not because it's bad, not because you shouldn't touch, you know?
But here you
Yeah.
have Bible verses that people use to tell that child, no, your body actually isn't yours.
Ugh.
It is this entity, this deity that you can't see, you can't feel, you can't experience, you can't interact with your senses, but you're just supposed to trust it. And any terrible thing that happens to you, that may be of God. So shut the fuck up and endure it. How
Ugh.
gross.
I mean, God won't give you more than you can bear, right?
Oh, for fuck's
Mm-hmm.
Until he does. You know, and I did that, and I lived that. And you know, I tried so hard to live that I told myself I wasn't a person. I think I think I talked about that in the interview with you, that I
Yeah.
really tried very hard to convince myself that I was not a person. Because I felt like, you know, my life was not my own. I was to be dedicated to God first, my husband second, and my children third. And yeah, I've told the story a few times about how after becoming an unbeliever, and my youngest went off to college, and I went to the grocery store and I looked at the cookies and I said, "What do I want?" And that was such a novel thought to me. What do I want? I can want something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's called dating yourself. Yeah, that you get to that point, you're like, what do I want? Holy shit, I've never even thought about it, because I've spent my entire life everyone else telling me who I am and what I want and what I should think and believe. Holy shit,
Right.
this is a new concept, huh?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it
A
was.
cookie,
I'm-
though. Cookie. Yeah, our desire is very important. Our understanding that we can want things and seek things, go for things, demand things. Very important, very empowering.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it would change everything. I think if all the little kids knew that they deserved all the good things, to be loved, to have enough, to all those things, I think would change the world if all the kids knew that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although not all the kids can have that either, and that's one of the things that, you know, is so heart-wrenching,
Yeah.
and so ridiculous about the, you know, God won't give you more than you can ask, and
Mm.
What about the 25,000 people that starve to death every single day? And 10,000 of those are children. You know, did God not give them? And I even asked a pastor that point blank. Um, okay, this comment is too good to pass up. Sweet cookies. And that's in response to proof that cookies are good for mental health.
We could have used some for this
I
conversation.
concur on all of that.
Definitely, definitely. Unfortunately, weed cookies aren't legal where I live, but maybe one day.
Aw, sadness.
In
Maybe.
Alabama, good luck to you, honey.
Mm.
That's going to take a while.
Well, actually, you know, I think it may be closer than you think because it's already legal to have THC in certain forms. I think you can vape it, and medical marijuana is okay.
Oh,
But
well, you're halfway there then.
yeah, it's been creeping in. And I think it's going to end up getting legalized, and people aren't even going to realize it in the beginning. And suddenly, the dispensaries are going to start popping up, and people are going to, wait a minute, that's illegal. No, it's not.
I got a kick out of Wisconsin. They had CBD dispensaries all over, just waiting for the conversion to happen.
Oh, really?
They're
Yeah,
so
it's
ready.
funny seeing how all the different states are handling their stuff as they work on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, let's see. Getting back to this idea of the the mindset, yeah. And even, most of the women that I've talked about that, I said it wasn't necessarily religion that did it to them, but maybe it is, because most of these women are highly religious women that make these choices for men that, maybe they feel like God wants them to be with these men, or maybe the men tell them that God wants them to be with them.
That happens too.
Mhm.
Who was it? Stacy of Stacy's Mom podcast. She was
Mhm.
saying on a live with or on a interview with us how she was terrified for years. She was terrified that some man she didn't like was going to come up and tell her that God had said they were supposed to be together. I also was at a college evangelical group retreat once where I think 3 of the women were told by God that they were supposed to be with our leader. So, yeah.
Oh, I remember that story.
Yeah.
Tell us about that one.
Well, I mean, I guess that's really all there was to it, but there was,
Oh.
it was like we were at this in the woods at a camp type space, and we're doing our prayer and meditation time in the big open room, and throughout the course of the weekend we figured out at least 3 women had told our pastor that they thought they were supposed to be with him.
Because he was the
Mm.
best looking dude there, and that's saying something, dude.
Ah,
I mean, I had
okay.
something similar too. So, Granny, we both found ourselves in like more evangelical Assemblies of God type of churches later on in life after we got away from the cult. And yeah, for my short little stint in evangelicalism, I had this gross, creepy dude that would always like go near me and touch me and say that God wanted us to be married and be together because he knows, because, the Holy Spirit and all that. So who was I to question, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're just a woman. I mean, you're nothing.
Can't go against God's will, right? Even though I'm not feeling the same way. So something wrong with me, or he's the man, so I just have to give in.
You're like, oh, I checked with God on that. He said you're lying. I don't know.
No. Doesn't want me to be with you.
Oh, I wish I would have.
I know, because God told me herself. Yeah. Oh, nasty. Oh, I feel so bad for Stacy of Stacy's Mom podcast. She's such a beautiful young woman with a cutesy young voice. I'm sure she's just had so many gross dudes like, ooh, come after her.
Well, that brings up an interesting thing. I think in America we're kind of gross about it because we like to infantilize women. The more we can make them like little girls, the better, and that is fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
right? With how we act, with how we dress, with uh with
Even
how
our
we wear our
name.
body hair. Hmm?
This was a point
Yep.
I made to my uncle way back when I was about 12. Was I said, boys when they're little are Billy and Bobby and Johnny and Stevie, and when they grow up, they're Bill and Bob and Steve and John. We drop all that E. But girls, when they are young, are Patty and Nancy and Julie and Janie and Kelly. And when we grow up, we're still Patty and Nancy and Julie and Janie and Kelly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, what is that? It's like we're not allowed to grow up. I think it
Mhm.
was what Aristotle or something had the notion that women were like failed men, or like we just didn't quite get there or whatever. And I mean, that's how our church operated, that women were just, okay, you're cute. Thanks for the finger foods.
Or on the opposite end, I've heard people say, no, God created man and then realized he could do better, and then he created woman. So man was
Yep.
just a test run.
Right. Right.
I know,
Awesome.
that's what we've got for clapback, right?
Mhm.
Flat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ember says women are defective males, but by natural process.
Oh dear. Okay, I hadn't heard the actual phrasing of that.
Wow.
So, how did you find your voice, Patty?
How did I find my voice?
Mhm.
I'm think I'm gonna have to credit my kids,
Okay.
actually. I think I don't know how much I would have done in service of just myself. Um, but I got out of church stuff because of my kids, so I would say that's pretty close to the same thing. Um, I wasn't even pregnant yet, but I knew I wanted to have a kid the next year. And so I was thinking about this, and like I was going through my daily life doing things and thinking like, okay, well, this be like with a baby in tow, and just trying to imagine, I'm young, I'm 20 something. And I was thinking about church. And I was like, I'll put him in the nursery and then they can learn all the, oh, I don't want him to learn that bullshit. And I was like, oh, I think it's bullshit, and I've been hiding that from myself. So for me, that was that break, and recognizing that for my kids, there was a lot I was willing to say and do that I might not have done otherwise. So that was where I found my voice and got passionate about everything and got into activism of all kinds, and all kinds of things kind of like started for me at that point.
That is really cool. That is really cool. Nancy, how did you find your voice?
When it came to voice, I'd say it was just time, Kelly.
Mhm.
I'd say I always had my mind. I Despite this really powerful cult that we were in, I never actually believed it. I don't think I ever fully believed it. I did have my mind, and I think since I didn't have a voice for such a long time, I just remained silent until I started to gain the confidence. And again, it just took years. It took me building up my own self confidence. Maybe the military did actually help with that. I became sort of addicted to traveling around the world and learning how other people live, and just loving this world and loving humanity and realizing it wasn't a terrible place. I loved it, and I love the people in it. And it was a very long time until I realized that this world wasn't really a terrible place. Yes, uh, humans can do terrible things to each other. They can also do incredibly wonderful things, and I'm here for all of it, and to help it move in a positive direction as much as possible. So I would say just time. It took years, and it really, Patty and I started our channel about a year ago, just because we kept talking to each other and realizing I think we need to talk about some of the things that we went through when we were younger, because if it helps even just one other person, then we should do it. And then we kept going, then we're realizing little traumas that keep coming out because our voices were shut down for such a long time. And now if we're helping not only ourselves to speak up, but others, then yeah, we're gonna fucking keep going. We're gonna keep going.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Make
don't
our
want
voices louder.
I don't want those loud voices at the opposite end of the spectrum to win. I don't want more children to have to go through things that us and other kids of, high control churches have had to go through. Because look at all this horse shit we have to get through to overcome. Years. It takes time. It takes healing. It takes all kinds of things. And we want to be cycle breakers and not continue that on. So whatever little part we can do, we can all do something. Everyone's voice is important.
And now more so than ever.
Yes.
Which brings me to another thing is the news just the other day about the bishop that did that I can't remember if it was a prayer or it was a prayer breakfast or what it was, and Trump and the Republicans were criticizing her for having said that she made an impassioned plea to Trump to have compassion on people. And the Republicans were extremely critical of her and calling her a so-called bishop and saying that she should be deported. And I went and looked up deported. Is she an immigrant? And she's not an immigrant. She was born in New Jersey, but she was born to immigrant parents. And Trump is trying to get rid of birther citizenship. And so,
Holy shit.
would try to. There is no way legally he could strip people of their citizenship who have already been born. He's trying to prevent citizenship from attaching to anyone who's hasn't been born. He's not going to win. There's not a chance in hell he's going to win. Not without.
Feel reassured by you saying that.
Yeah. That's why 22 states and some cities have already sued him over that, because it's a direct violation of the Constitution. And it's funny because the judge that has already blocked him from enforcing this executive order, Trump called him a Trump hater. He's a Reagan appointee. I mean, this guy is not a liberal Democrat by any chance, but
And he's been around a while.
Realized was that not only is the current administration wanting to push religion onto us, but they're even wanting to control what religion it is that we're supposed to believe. They're telling us what we can and cannot believe as far as even within Christianity. And this is I don't do this often, but this is fucking ridiculous.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And and so the more voices we have speaking out right now, the better.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, anybody out there, if you have a minute, if you want to say something to the world, like, get on your computer, get on YouTube. There is no reason not to right now.
Yeah.
I'll boost you. Yesterday I promoted somebody who had 2 subscribers and I was one of them. Like, let's do this, especially women out there, but everybody, obviously, trans folks, everybody, like, get out there, say stuff wherever you can say it. Maybe not shout it on a street corner because people don't take very kindly to that. But yeah, if we still trust the algorithm, let's get on here and use our voice. Like John, Godless Engineer says, use your voice.
Tsunami asks, how about HR 7? Which rule is HR 7? Is that House Rule 7? Is that a bill? I'm not sure. I don't generally know legislation by number.
Mm.
Tsunami can tell us which one that is.
Yeah. Ember says use your voice while you still can. Yeah.
Exactly.
You are not wrong, honey.
Exactly.
You are not wrong. Now is the time to band together more than ever. People's rights are being taken away.
Oh, Time Jumper says my partner and I are going to record the first episode of our new podcast tomorrow.
Yay!
Time Jumper.
That's great.
Called Time Jump. It's called The Time Jumper?
Yeah. Here,
I'll write
Time
that down.
Jumper, I'm going to give you a wrench so you can link your just a minute.
Okay.
I'm having to turn to a different page to be able to do this. And it's trying to catch up. The chat is going so fast trying to catch up.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm trying to catch Time Jumper. There we are. All right. Time Jumper, I am making you a mod.
Nice.
There we go. Add as moderator.
I just want to say I saw a comment a little bit ago. Apostate JJ was very kind to me, and I just wanted to say love you too. I'm so glad you have had that space to discover yourself. It's been so fucking beautiful to watch.
Okay. Oh, Time Jumper says he doesn't have the channel set up yet. Okay. Time Jumper, when you get your channel set up, email me. My email is in the description. I will have you on, and we'll talk about your channel and what you're doing, and see if we can't help you get off the ground. And we have a super chat from Wildman Chris, who says, "Can I get you to review my video on your live stream? No one watches me, and I want to die and find out if God is real." Okay,
Chris?
We do not want you to die, Chris, because that is a one-way ticket, and you can't come back.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to review your video. Send me an email, and I'll review. I probably won't do it on a live stream. We'll see. More likely, I would do it on as a scripted video. But if it looks like something we could do on a live stream, maybe I'll do it on a live stream. But send me a link by email. And John Hunter says an ex-girlfriend suffered by a mission leader. She also told her mom, who went to his office and read him the riot act. He still came to our church to preach, but would claim illness preventing him from speaking. Wow. At least he didn't speak.
I know. I was like, that guy actually seemed like he realized he did something wrong. I feel like most of the stories you hear, they're just like, whatever.
Well, yeah.
Feel like they've got a right.
Well, either that or they go and they confess their sin to God, and now they've been made right, and now they can get up and preach and do whatever. You know? Yeah. Because the victims don't matter. Why should the victims matter?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
The stories are going to keep coming out. And they should, so that we can help prevent them.
Yeah.
And hold space for those who've been through it.
Yes.
And need to know that it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't mean there was something wrong with them or they did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, Chris asked for my email, and I put it in the chat. So there it is.
Perfect. Yes.
Well, Chris. But it's also, if you go to my channel and you click on more, my email address is there in some of the information. Okay. Jinju asks, don't you have to ask forgiveness of those you hurt? And the answer is no, absolutely not. According to the religion, if you ask God for forgiveness, you're golden. You don't need to.
And honestly, if you had something done against you, like you were treated badly, and then the person came to you and was like, okay, well, I know I did that to you. I'm sorry. Now you need to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's kind of like just saying like, yeah, okay, it's fine that you did that, by saying like, yeah, you're forgiven. No, sorry. You're not off the hook for these things. You
Right.
know, it's like a cover up. It's like without actually making anything right, they just expect forgiveness. I think the only forgiveness we should really be promoting is the forgiving of ourselves, because we hold ourselves far too accountable for our perceived mistakes,
Yeah.
when we should be loving ourselves and be like, yeah, that was very human. Like, we
Right.
can tell why we did those things. I think most of our unfortunate behaviors are out of like a self-protection kind of thing. You know, we behave badly when we are scared. We behave badly when we feel like we're not good enough, you know? But we've layered on so many things on top of our scared feelings deep down, that all the other people see is anger.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing, is recognizing that even the people who are doing this harm, yes, obviously it needs to be stopped. But that's not just like, you're evil, go away. Like, there's more to the story there about those people too, and what
Mm-hmm.
they suffered and need
Mm-hmm.
healing for, you know?
I
Right.
think there is a place for forgiving a perpetrator once they have shown that they are worthy of forgiveness.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes.
That's fair.
Have to earn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People often say, oh, you forgive a person, you'll feel better. I don't think that's necessarily the case all the time. I think
Mm-hmm.
especially in Christian spaces, we're told to forgive people, and it's just not rational. It's not feasible to forgive somebody for certain things. So like maybe we're not ready and we really don't want to forgive the person. No, that's going to make you feel better, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Tress Adams says, does asking the victim's forgiveness do any good beyond making the perpetrator feel better?
That's it, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. It could. I think if the perpetrator, I think if the victim is asked to forgive the perpetrator, that's step one. You know, that's not enough for the victim to actually forgive, but it is a step in the right direction. At least you've acknowledged that what you've done is wrong.
Sure, sure. I think the place that I really take issue though is more like when the perpetrator demands forgiveness. When they
Mm-hmm.
say like, God says you have to forgive me. Right?
Right.
That's the piece that I'm like, that is not changing anything. You are not making anything right. Like, fuck all the way off with that.
That
Yep.
happened to a friend of ours too, a pastor that said, you are commanded by God to forgive me for my shitty action. Our friend is gay, and this pastor did not take kindly to him being gay, said some horrible things to him in front of the entire congregation. And then it comes to him later. It's like, no, you're commanded by God to forgive me. And so he just wanted that yeah, a place for saying sorry. But yeah, I'm with you, Kelly. Like I feel like the person really has to earn our forgiveness. Like, what happens with the people who just keep doing these terrible things over and over and making justifications for it, and then you're just like, oh well, you just forgive me and I'll start over again. I know it's kind of the Christian way.
Mhm.
Like we could go to the whole like, I wanted a bike, so instead of praying to God for it, I just stole a bike because God will forgive me for it, because that's how he works.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Forgiveness. Gosh.
I know. I really struggle with that. I mean, what does it mean to forgive someone? Like, what does that feel like in our bodies to forgive someone? Because to me, it's like, isn't the issue trust? Like, if
Mhm.
they did this thing to you, you don't trust them. And with good reason. They just proved to you that you couldn't trust them. So, like, what is forgiveness then? Like, oh, I just trust you again? I don't know. Like, trust is something that has to be earned and, like, rebuilt over time.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Does anybody else know what forgiveness actually is or feels like? Because I don't know that I do.
I
Forgiveness just feels like, oh, it's okay that you did that. It's all better now. What? What
Yeah.
else is there?
Yeah.
Robert
Mm-mm.
X says, forgive me for not wanting to forgive someone who hurt me.
Yeah. Valid.
Well, right.
Valid. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one?
It's kind of narcissism. Clement Green. Yeah. Narcissism. Like people, they don't, it's like a stain for that person, you know, like, oh, I did you wrong, but I really don't want to take ownership for it. So you just have to forgive me to wipe it clean. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there, you know, being told as a child to forgive a sibling or something. I don't know. We probably had to do that too, Pat, right? As kids, we
I
probably
don't know. That's
did
the
something
weird
shitty
part.
to each other and told, "Oh, you have to say you're sorry to the other person." I
Oh.
get what the parent is trying to do. Yeah, no, teach them how like forgiveness works. But I would say talk through the process here on how forgiveness works, not just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and be done with it. I
Right.
mean,
Especially when the apology is a not apology.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is the value there? I don't see it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
if change, right? That's the goal. It is the person not doing those types of things anymore.
Right.
Uh,
Goes back to the whole, they're just going to keep going back to the same shit that they're doing, and just what, we forgive them every single time? Yeah.
Right. What is it? It's like
That's a tough one.
forgiveness without change is just abuse or something like that.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Like
I
like
also
if you're forgiving someone over and over and they just keep doing it and they don't change, like you're actually just being abused.
you may
Yeah,
also
you
be
gotta,
enabling.
yeah, enabling their
That's true.
behavior in a way,
Yes.
because they just know they can get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The not apologies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hot topic, huh? Yeah, the whole topic of forgiveness. Very good discussion I'm seeing here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, where was it?
Is it that one?
No, up a little bit. Someone said forgiving honest mistakes does help parties to move forward. Yeah, I would say so.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
It's interesting to see different cultures too, because my husband is from India, and probably one of our biggest problems is, you know, communication. You know, he could say something that could mean something like maybe terrible in our culture, and to him it's perfectly fine. But to him, saying sorry is just not really a thing, because I think for a
Mhm.
lot of them, it's kind of like, well, if you say you're sorry, that means you intentionally did something terrible to the other person. It's not like here in our culture. I know in the US, a lot of us are like, oh, you bump into someone by accident. You say, oh, hey, sorry, didn't mean to bump into you. That's kind of, that's not really a thing
Mhm.
there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, like it's more intentional, like you're meaning to hurt someone. Like, no, here we say sorry even when we don't necessarily mean to do something. That's just
I
kind of,
think women say sorry too much though too.
I agree.
We say sorry
Yeah.
for everything all the time, especially to men, and we got to stop doing that. Like even for like wanting to say something to them. Oh, I'm sorry. Why? Why are you saying sorry? You have a right to speak, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I caught on to that a little earlier in life too. I'm just like, yeah, when I was writing my novel, actually, I kept asking the question, like, why the fuck does my protagonist keep saying sorry for everything? I'm like, why is she apologizing to begin with? She didn't do anything wrong. So I realized that was kind of like art therapy for me, writing a story
Mm.
and realizing that my own like personality and traumas were coming out in my protagonist, seeing the world through her eyes and realizing, oh, I can actually write her however I want to. So let's change a few things.
Mhm.
Ooh.
Oh. And the same is true for Nancy. You can write her however you want to.
Yay.
I do know this. Sometimes the person who wronged you isn't around to forgive anymore. So you have to work things out from the inside for yourself.
Yeah.
I also think it makes a big difference how serious the thing is that the person did.
Right.
And if it's nothing serious, then yeah, you just forgive them and move on. And if it's something extremely serious, then they need to prove to you that they are worthy of your trust once again.
For sure.
Nancy,
Well,
is your novel finished?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon.
Okay, and what's the name of it?
It's called Velakari. It's a Tamil word my husband speaks. That's his native tongue there. It means like foreign girl, white girl.
Oh, okay.
History of Indian people. I can type it in here. It is under a pen name. I guess if anyone's curious, it's just kind of a story that I was just getting my shit out, you know.
it's very good, Nancy.
Well, thanks. Patty did interview me on our channel for it as well, so I do talk about some of the things in there. So there you go.
Okay, very good.
Highly recommend the interview with Anna Siduri, actually.
Anna Siduri is
She was an excellent author to talk to about how she did her own healing work by way of her creative efforts. It was really beautiful.
Did she appear on camera or did she appear by avatar?
I appeared on camera. Oh, she did. Whatever.
We thought about making it a big joke of like trying to have both of them on the screen of Nancy and then Anna Siduri, but no, we just did it.
We have a fellow author in here too, Randall Harmonica Man Randy Magley. Awesome. You also have a book. Let's hear about it.
Something else for you to consider, Nancy. There's a group called the Atheist and Christian Book Club. And every other month they do an atheist book and have the author of the book on, and every other month they do a Christian book and have the author on. And if you'd be interested in going with them, I will give you a caveat that the last time I was not on featured as the guest, I came on featured as the guest not for anything I wrote, but just for my videos.
Okay.
But they asked me to come, and because they were having trouble getting atheists to come, but they lied to me. You know, the president of the club lied to me about why he wanted me to come, which was really stupid, because all he had to do was say, you know, we'd like you to be there, and I would have come. But instead he made up this stupid story of why he wanted me to be there, which I realize that's what apologists do. So
did you forgive him for his deception, Kelly?
Sort of. I haven't gone back.
Yeah, just be honest with people. Come on.
Yeah.
Things real. So my novel is really not atheist based. I mean, the protagonist is an atheist. She's not a believer, but I really don't touch on that much in the book. That was more just kind of, you know, cult trauma coming out through art therapy, which I highly recommend for anyone who's got that creative side, whether you want to write or speak or I don't know, paint, do woodwork, anything that kind of inspires you to help heal some of those traumas. We're here for it. Awesome. Okay. But thanks for the recommendation. I will check them out, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay. We are out of time. So I just want to recap very quickly. Today we were talking about the book Disobedient Women by Sarah Stankorb, and a link to the book, to the Amazon book, is in the description. I know Amazon links are incredibly long, but it's there. And I've been speaking today with Nancy and Patti, the Apostate sisters, and a link to their channel is in the description as well. If you are not already subscribed to Nancy and Patti, please go and subscribe to the Apostate sisters. They have some amazing interviews on their channel. Is there anything that you have coming up that you'd like to plug?
I guess you can just kind of talk about what our channel is about as far as the different I series we have right now.
Yeah, I guess I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show, but we do have 3 series currently. One is a live Unpack It TV, where we watch old episodes of our cult's propaganda and react to it live. We do interviews with Worldwide Church of God folks and also atheists. And we do our podcast, which was the original thing of Nancy and I talking about topics that are important to us. Often around bodily autonomy and the church experience we had growing up. We do have a special episode of our podcast coming out. I guess it will be in April, so it's a little ways out, but we're going to have R and Raw on the channel along with my younger child. And they're going to be talking about times that God fucked up and the importance of young people being involved in understanding biology.
That could go on for years.
What?
That could go on for years.
I know, times that God fucked up. I know,
We'll
right?
have to cut it off in an hour.
So that's kind of the exciting things we have coming down the line here. Lots of cool interviews on the way. So.
Okay, and Liam Wakefield has put a link to your book in the chat. So thank you,
Liam. Thank you. And thank you, Heathen Granny. Appreciate that. Awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Hope to see you over on our channel. We have a lot of fun over there.
We sure do.
Yeah.
And next week on my channel, the guest will be Godless Grandpa. He will be coming back.
What?
And he,
I haven't heard of Godless Grandpa.
He that's just the name that he's given himself. He's no relation to me, but he had an idea that he wanted to float, and I said, sure, I'd be happy to have him on the channel again to float this idea.
Awesome.
I'm adding him right now. That's amazing.
Okay, so with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Patti and Nancy, for coming on and talking with me. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Kelly. You got me to shed a few tears. That doesn't happen very often, so thank you.
It's true.
It's healing. Yeah.
Live your life.
Live your life.